marketing landscape. Mr. Brien, vorgesehen auf dem Vortrag. New York. Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. I'm going to talk about the new market landscape. Many of the issues we've already talked about today. I was fortunate to return last week from Las Vegas. And I didn't have because I lose. I went to Las Vegas to visit CES, along with these other marketeers. And that was the biggest difference. This was the biggest consumer electronics show, 135,000 people. And it wasn't just individual marketeers who attended, but large groups of these marketeers. And they were going because they didn't want to talk about why, but how. And the reason they were going is because obviously it's what we've been talking about today. We have a very digitally empowered consumer. And we know they're connected, we know they're vocal, we know they're sharing. And ultimately there's a lot of discussion amongst all these marketeers, many of whom we work with around the world, who are saying, how do we actually develop a new marketing model that's based on participation as opposed to interruption. It's about engagement, it's about solicitation, it's about understanding that this is a fundamentally interactive world. And I think what I learned in Las Vegas most, and I want to share with you some of the big themes that seem to be very important to all the marketeers I talked about. Not just to me, my point of view, but one of the most exciting things was how technology is democratizing everything. And it's democratizing the ability for consumers to be very fundamentally involved in every element of the brand activity. So it's a very exciting time. Some people are threatened by it. It certainly upends traditional business models. But it's one that gives us the opportunity to say, and it was used here today, many times the word revolution. I agree with that. I do not believe this is an evolution. Nothing about what is going on at the moment is evolutionary. Let me give you some perspectives. Because each of the different categories I work with my clients on are suddenly looking at the convention of the way they drive to a sale is changing fundamentally. Because I grew up in a world where you turn a suspect into a prospect, into a buyer, into an advocate. And now so many of the clients I'm working with are understanding that advocacy is gold. Because advocacy is loyalty, and ultimately the most loyal consumers are the ones who are most valuable. They're the ones who are most profitable. But sometimes we're understanding in this new world, the ones that are most valuable are the ones that buy the most. They're the ones that talk the most. They're the ones that tweet the most. They're the ones that share the most. These were the themes: social, mobile, local, data, content. These are the 5 big themes I bring you from Las Vegas and the CES, where I saw for the first time the true fusion of marketing and content and technology all come into one, with a lot of marketeers really challenging every element of the business to say, how do we make it work? Let's start with social. If I think about social media, the first thing to say is everybody has a view on social media, everybody has a view as to the way we use social media, but I'm not here to present any perspectives on how the good and the bad of social media, other than to say that this is the most fundamentally game-changing phenomena since the arrival of television. And when people talk about social media, I think we need to remember that we have always lived in a fundamentally social world. In fact, Facebook actually presented some very interesting statistics to say the average African village went to 150 before it broke away and created another village. The average size of friends is 150. There's a lot of similarity. And I think what's interesting is you think about the growth of internet accessibility, especially in the emerging markets. This is a way to access social networking. Social networking is internet use. Look at that line, look at the graph between that growth. Next one to think about is how people are using the internet today. Again, time spent on the category. This is the most phenomenal change, and ultimately it's been driven by the fact that it's a worldwide phenomenon. One of the things I'm most excited about is now social networking and social media platforms, especially Facebook, have become global platforms. And for us, in the media and the marketing industry, social media has now offered a new alternative to the big global properties of the Olympics and the World Cup and CNN. Now we have global media platforms that we can actually use for brand engagement all across the world. Another thing to consider very seriously is the age dynamic. This is no longer a phenomenon where people are saying social media and the use of social networking is for the young. Gone. Look at this chart. The thing I noticed when I came out of Vegas is too many people are saying social media, social networking, they talk about Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn in the same way. Forget it. Facebook is a gorilla in the jungle. Twitter is not even in the same conversation. I apologize to anyone who works at Twitter who's sitting here. This growth is driven primarily by Facebook's ability to adapt themselves in the local market. And actually I met Mark Zuckerberg recently and I said, what are the keys to your phenomenal success as a business? Because sadly for me, he doesn't advertise. Two things. Translation services and smartphones. So the translation services are no longer just automated technologies, they're human beings adapting to the same pattern of the way friends interact with one another and making sure every time they go into a new market, it is humanized and not just a technology application. And the second thing is smartphones. Because obviously you look at the growth and you say, smartphones are changing the world. The point I wanted to make today is that there's a huge opportunity to do so much more. Everyone talks about social media. Media for me is about awareness building. I think the exciting thing is to talk about social marketing and fundamentally to also think about social business. I want to give a few examples to just have in the minds of those of you who are considering social media that there are different ways to use it. And there's different considerations. I admire Coca-Cola greatly. They saw their Facebook page developed by an artist and a writer in LA who developed it themselves. They didn't take it down, they didn't shut it down. They embraced these two creators and they took what was a site that was developed by pure fans into something that has 37 million fans. It's a very active, dynamic and rich territory for prosumers to engage with the brand in every element. And it's very, very exciting. I have another one which came from Israel, where Facebook introduced a timeline. So a timeline for your life. And they took this idea and said, what would be the course of a year's life for a character they created called Adam Barak. And Adam, who was and is a drugs user, and what his timeline would look like after a year versus life without drugs. I mean, a nice, creative way to create a social message. When I think about social business, it gets very, very exciting because fundamentally there's a company called Zappos, acquired by Amazon. And that's another point to make that I learned coming out of Vegas is you've seen huge consolidation. Google owns search. Amazon online retailing globally. Facebook owns social media. The two big spaces that are yet colonized are local and mobile payment. We've yet to see how this evolves. The Zappos is an interesting business model because everything they do is fundamentally social. They've woven social media and social networking into every element of the consumer experience. In fact, their mission statement is to have the very best customer service in the world. And the way they do that is to have a live, interactive engagement with every one of their consumers, every one of their customers, good or bad experience. They've done it very, very well. One of the interesting things that I'll talk about a bit later is how to manage data, because they were hacked yesterday. I don't know if some of you saw that. 24 million records corrupted. Challenging situation. But this is a business that embodies it. Anyone wants to get a sense of the way that they're thinking about social, you have to go to their site, because it explains it all. And they'll talk about the way they leverage it in every element of their business. R&D, marketing and sales, human resources, customer service, corporate affairs. There's not one element of their total business model that is not socially defined and socially reinvented. Now some would say it's easy for them. They're a young business, they're a new business, they emerge in the world of the online, internet, retail, brand experiences. So they define themselves as a fundamentally social business. I refuse to accept that legacy businesses and brands that have been built in another era can't easily adopt themselves in the same way. In fact, there's a wonderful book by a lady called Carol Shu called The Facebook Era, which I think is one of the best, most sophisticated books in terms of modern-day marketing in the Facebook world. It's only going to grow. This is the other thing that came across from CES when I met with the executives of Horizon, Qualcomm, Vodafone. You see that the new activity for smartphones is essentially not voice. Occasionally they might make a phone call, and usually it will drop. But this is an unbelievable use of the smartphone technology, and I saw many of the Taiwanese manufacturers who are marketing smartphones in India and Africa for under $25 US. So there's a huge drop in the technology and a huge increase in the capability of mobile computers that people can use to engage. This is something that is only going to accelerate the social networking phenomenon. I expect Facebook to be $1 billion by June. So that brings me to the second part, which is mobile payment. Everyone knows about NFC, everyone knows about the fact that you can pay your taxi in New York with your mobile phone, you can buy a Starbucks, but micropayments and the use of mobile money is something that is certainly emerging very, very quickly in India and Africa. We're seeing it increasingly in the Middle East. But I think mainstream, this is something that's going to be a game changer. Why is it exciting? You see the kind of growth that's happening now, again, using the smartphones across all of them. I think the other aspect that I think is important is to recognise that where smartphones are compared to mobile phones today means that the technology that can be baked in can only grow on the upside. Everyone knows about Google's powerful, these are new devices that have the payment technology built in, and obviously they've acquired Motorola, so we're going to see greater emphasis and pressure in terms of the way they're building this into the service. What does it mean for business? Location-based services, discounted offers, transparent pricing, immediate gratification. The immediacy of addressability. I heard people earlier and some of the panels talking about the addressability of advertising. I'm more excited about the addressability when I opt in and I walk down the street and I have retailers and merchants and brand engagements hitting me and talking to me and tweeting me and sending me profiles and promotions that say, you want to engage with us, this is where I am. The immediacy of these new devices is going to allow that to be very exciting. Coca-Cola is another brand we're working on around the world who are very determined. This is an example from Hong Kong. Very exciting. When the commercial comes on, you can actually interact with some of the TVs if you pick up the music on a Spotify type music listening device, catch icons, collect them, be linked into a syndicated promotional program, and hey presto, you're part of an interactive database and a promotion is mailed directly to the phone. It's been a huge success. Why these mobile phones and the micropayment systems are so exciting is because they link to the next stage of what I think is going to be a major change and opportunity in the marketing world, which is location-based services. Some people call it local, some people call it hyper-local. I grew up in the old world of marketing and advertising where brands were built top-down. The local activities and the local affairs were considered trade marketing, and that was a promotional conversation and had little to do with the marketing and advertising. And now I think we're in a world where suddenly marketing becomes much more location-based, much more addressable, much more episodic. Let me talk about that in a bit more detail. You've seen many of the copycats for Groupon around the world, but it's not just coupons and demand services. It's payment inventory management, reviews, check-ins, and people are using the location-based services to share with their friends who they are, where they are, what they're doing, what are their photos, what are they eating, what are they buying, what are they doing. The immediacy of the social dynamic is now going to be happening where consumers live, where they buy, where they shop, where they interact. It's a local sensibility. And before, the only way we can target this is with local press, local radio, and local coupons. And I think it's going to make the whole retail excitement really much more dynamic. You've got the interactivity between retail stores and the mobile world. So bricks and clicks are going to come together in a much more exciting format. Smartphones and the way they're being used locally. It's interesting that there was a big guffaw in New York over the whole Black Friday, the post day, which is the biggest shopping day after Thanksgiving, where certain retailers were blocking the use of mobile phones by consumers because they were scanning products to see where they could buy them more cheaply and whether they could buy them online. So the retailers were going through all the effort of stocking brands, promoting brands, training people to merchandise and sell brands, and they were having consumers use the technology to simply buy the product somewhere else, somewhere near at a price. It's moving very, very quickly. Location-based power was used by a client of ours called SLS in Japan, and they track illnesses, colds, hay fever. They were tracking all the tweets that were emerging across Japan. And it was phenomenal the way they were able to capture 150,000 tweets a day, and they were able to correlate the data, and they were able to make sure that they were shipping the right product in the right way at the right time. It was a phenomenal change of the business model, where they were simply used to putting out the products that they thought people wanted, and they couldn't do it in enough time. Now this is happening in a real-time format. This was a huge success for us. The fourth area is data. We talked on data earlier because it came up in one of the trading conversations. There was a McKinsey study that came out that said by 2015 there will be 200,000 jobs with no one to fill them in the world of data management. Because we know we are awash with data. We are being overwhelmed with data. Talk to anyone who works as a mobile carrier, anyone who works in social media, anyone who's managing any web activity. We are drowning in data. The challenge for all of this is to turn data into strategic value, into knowledge, into intelligence. And that requires tools, technology, smart people, and it ultimately means that we can capitalize on this huge opportunity if we recognize that the price of storage, the price of data is dropping, but the need to harness it fundamentally on an ongoing basis is something that is fundamental to all of our businesses, whether on the agency side, the media side, or on the client marketing side. The issue that we need to think about is privacy. The hacking episode for Zappos yesterday, the fact that 24 million customer records were compromised. And I will look tonight to see if my credit card has bought a Ferrari in Taiwan. It's happened. I mean, it's a disaster. So the big issue is privacy. How do people really feel about sharing? There are lots of points of view. There's no one common point of view. We deal in our organisation with many different clients across many different categories. Food, soft drinks, the pharmaceuticals, gaming, travel. There's not one constant. So we did a true study. We went out into the marketplace, into the world, and we actually talked in 19 countries. We interviewed 20,000 people on and offline, qual and quant, to ask their points of view about sharing their data and how they felt about it, and the results. I'm just going to give you a summary here from our Truth Central team. This was the one that was the truth about privacy. Very interesting. 86% of worldwide respondents understand the benefit. The top two, I get access to better discounts and promotions. The company will show me things that interest me. The true addressability of content and promotional and engagement based on my personal interests or needs. So, you can see, I mean, they are prepared to do it. The other thing they're prepared to do is have an engagement with brands. If brands don't bore me, irritate me, interrupt me, if they're able to do it, I will sign up. I will sign up for a company with newsletters and offers. I will sign up for scorecards. You can see there's a hierarchy of needs and interests. For Facebook, in terms of the way that it manages data and the way that it opens up, because ultimately the unbelievably high valuation on this future IPO is defined by commerce meeting community. That is a highly sensitive issue. They want commitment. They want to be able to trust that brands and businesses want to use them, and they want to know what they're going to get in return. The message here, think like a bank. The reason I say that is from the research, the most trusted institutions were the banks. Then came the credit card companies and the medical companies, because your health data, your financial data, is expected to be managed in a very sophisticated way. So I think the answer is not to be a bank, because not all of us can be or would want to be a bank. But what we can do is be very sophisticated in the way that we deal with our consumers, and we understand the sensitivity, and we thank them for their data, and we reassure them about their data, and we give them regular, ongoing, dynamic conversations about why we are using their data and why it's a benefit for them as opposed to a fact. I think the point that was made once earlier today, in this whole new world, the importance of content and the creativity of the content. Because without that, all of the devices we've talked about, and there was some discussion earlier, whether it's cycle, magazines, internet, posters, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't believe that consumers ultimately are going to be judging the brand engagement they have according to the channel or the platform. What they are going to be doing is experiencing an engagement. In the same way, if I tell my wife I love her by email, or I walk with her down the beach, I hold her hand with a glass of champagne. I mean, the contact has direct impact on the message. But fundamentally, creativity needs to be more fundamentally involved in all the contents being created. And one of the things we saw at CES was many of the technology platforms interacting with one another, and what was most exciting was the connectivity and the addressability and the immediacy of the technology. What was least exciting, least compelling, and least memorable was the content that was being developed. So I've got some points of view on this, because it can be done well. Here's one of our clients handling globally, Xbox. Connect has done more to transform gaming, but it's also done more to transform other businesses. And what was so impressive about what Microsoft did with Connect was to run an open source mentality, so anyone could use Connect. For medical, for educational, for entertainment, anyone was able to say, how could you use motion sensitive technology in what you're doing? And they could use this piece of content. It's a short form. There's a longer form on their site. You'll find it on YouTube, and it's designed to be a call for involvement and a call for action. And if you also look on the web and you type in, you look on YouTube and you type in Connect application, you'll see some of the amazing uses of Connect now all over the world. And it's a direct consequence of the fact that this call to action worked. Let's play this.
We started with a sensor that turned voice and movement into magic.
Xbox. Play.
We thought this would be fun to play with. And it was. But something amazing is happening. The world is starting to imagine things we hadn't even thought of. Unexpected things. Hopeful things. Beautiful things. Inspiring things. Which is why, even though the world keeps asking us what we'll do with Connect next, we're just as excited to ask the world the same thing.
See, when you go see some of the applications of the Connect technology, is remarkable. This is unleash the level of creativity. The next piece of content I want to share is for a client of ours called General Mills. They have a brand called Nature Valley. Nature Valley's mission is to be very close with nature. They had a wonderful idea that in the US they have many, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles of natural parks. And those parks aren't plotted. They're not mapped. And some creative genius had the idea to use Google Street Finder and to plot the national parks and to take trails at different times of year and create an interactive database that would allow those who are passionate to hike and travel and bike to really understand and learn all about the US national parks in a way that they've never had before. This is about a utility, it's about a service, fundamentally it's about establishing the true credibility of a brand's purpose beyond selling and making money. Let me show you this.
This initiative began about a year and a half ago with a simple idea. Wouldn't it be cool to take Street View technology to the parks?
HVAC has always been a big proponent of conserving the national parks. It was a really simple sort of connect the dots. The technology exists, so why not use it on trails?
That we can do more and more parks, cover more and more trails, and just become this massive hub for people to really come and get all of their park and hiking information.
Huge success, very popular now, something that the brand owns that everyone else missed, and it was just a smart idea and a way to think about adding value beyond selling products. I think the next one I want to show you is one that was a big success for MasterCard. They sponsored the World Cup, they were down in New Zealand, and in November they had the finals, but they wanted to really establish a relationship with some of the long-form content they created, and it was multi-platform about the different countries that were participating, and they built local programs around each of these. I'll show you one of the most charming ones that really excited me, but there's a whole series of these on the web, and they're all wonderful.
One Rugby World Cup was a massive achievement for Saudi. I don't think people are expecting us to be great.
Use your MasterCard to win the chance to witness history at Rugby World Cup 2011.
And for each of these special countries, there were 10 in all, there were about 10 executions and pieces of content that have been created. I think the point to make is that we all need to build a modern enterprise. And I've got some thoughts on that. When I came out of CES, I used it again, as I usually do when I come back from Vegas. I don't sleep for 3 days, I send mails to all my people, I gather meetings, and I make everyone realize that I'm breaking into a cold sweat because we're not moving fast enough. Because the technology is way ahead of the application. And our challenge as a creative agency and a strategic agency is to offer applications that make it business to build brands and drive businesses. We're thinking about this a lot. I have a vision with my team that we want to be the world's leading marketing solutions network. To do that, we've got to focus on solutions, not tactics, solutions that will transform brands and grow businesses. And one of the things that we've got to make sure we do, I'm trying to do a lot around the world, is to shift the conversation in all of this complexity from a conversation being dominated by the last decade, and it was about efficiency. And now I want to shift the conversation to one of effectiveness, because I believe that you need to make the right decision and then execute it with ruthless efficiency. But it seems to me that still many of the conversations and many of the decisions to spend hundreds of millions of billions of dollars of marketing money is based on an efficiency criteria. I'm not sure that's right anymore. So I'm going to leave you some thoughts that, and again, I've run about my limited time of 20 minutes, so I'll be quick. Number one, challenge convention. There are orthodoxies, there are conventions. We heard about it in a number of the panels that have been going on today. What are the structures? What are the designs? Too many agencies? Who do I talk to? I think the design of the current ecosystem of the agency landscape is making many of my clients' heads spin. Media agency, PR agency, advertising agency, software agency. All these different agencies. Ultimately, there needs to be one master contractor and there needs to be subcontractors. So Norman Foster was the only architect who worked and designed the Reichstag. He did not have 6 architects. One, he worked as a general contractor. The second one is we should demand innovation. Innovation is change. Coca-Cola have done a very good thing to say they are 70-20-10. 70% of their money is spent on tried and trusted activities. 20% is to innovate. 10% is to experiment with really little expectation that that knowledge will come back in anything really fruitful and successful immediately. Long-term investment for learning. Embrace creativity. I mean, I think our industry has a long way to go to demonstrate its creative genius, the magic of our creativity in all these new forms and platforms. And I'm not talking here about craft. I'm talking here about ideas, the power of the ideas, and then how, to the next point, how we integrate those powerful ideas in seamless, holistic, and even ways. And I'm not going to talk about the power and the belief in integration, because integration we have all been talking about all over the world for a very, very long time. Holistic, 360, IMC. I just feel fundamentally now is a time that we should all be working together in a much more collaborative way and integrate more deeply around processes and teams of individuals who want to collaborate. Because creativity is a collaborative process. It is not an individual agency P&L process. And the other thing we've got to do is we have to measure more quickly. We have to measure immediacy. We have to iterate more. I have all my clients around the world. One theme that is coming is with all this proliferation, all of these different platforms, we cannot afford to keep creating original content everywhere. We have to be smarter. We have to iterate, reiterate, replicate. We have to be really thoughtful about closing the gap between ideation and execution. Ladies and gentlemen, there are my 4 messages. Liebe Herren und Damen, vielen Dank.